It is a special delivery weekend edition of Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Chris Hine covers the Timberwolves for the Star Tribune. It is in Memphis, where a few hours ago, as of recording right now, the Wolves beat Memphis 130 to 117 in game one of the Western Conference playoffs, first round, first game. And Chris, we talked plenty going into this series that maybe this was a good matchup for the Wolves, just because of the way the regular season played out. They split that season series, even though Memphis won 10 more games than the Wolves did this year. For whatever reason, the Wolves seem to play pretty well against this team. And, you did wonder, though, playoffs, are things going to be different, right? Because you just don't know what's going to happen when the bright lights come on. But Memphis, not a team with a ton of playoff experience like the Wolves. So as you kind of sit back now, hours after the fact, and think about how that game played out, what in particular stands out to you?
I think what stood out was it really wasn't all that different from the way that the regular season played out. I don't think the game was any extra intense. I don't think that, the teams did necessarily a lot different from how they normally play. I think it very much played out like those four regular season matchups with the Wolves, doing a little more throughout the game. Really, Anthony Edwards was fantastic in his first career playoff game with 36. Karl-Anthony Towns bounces back, puts Tuesday behind him, and the Wolves, have two of the three best players on the floor during this series. And I think they showed why a lot of people, at least locally, maybe not nationally, but at least locally, saw this matchup and were like, you know what? The Wolves have a shot at this. And winning game one, I think that's the game you always want to try to win if you're the road team, because especially the Memphis Grizzlies are coming off a long layoff. They haven't played in a week, a little rusty. You saw that at the start. The Wolves jumped out to a fast start and never really looked back.
Yeah, you're saying locally versus nationally. I think the national ESPN, they did all the picks going into every single playoff series. And I believe it was 21 panelists picked Memphis and 0 picked the Wolves to win the series. So that said, I think people did expect this to be a series, and people do say a series isn't really a series until the road team wins a game. Well, that happens in game one, like we've talked about already so far. You mentioned Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. I want to start with Towns just because there was a lot of chatter, and rightfully so, after his, disastrous game against the Clippers, where, he fouls out and in the time he's in there does not look particularly comfortable. But the Wolves win that game anyway, give him kind of a mulligan to show his worth. And, I've talked about this on the podcast already this week. Like his playoff series against Houston was not very good his first go around. So for him to come out and to look the way he did, to score 29, to get 13 rebounds, and obviously it wasn't just him, but that felt very important, not just for the team, but for the perception of Karl-Anthony Towns.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big development for them here. And really from the start of the game, I was definitely looking for signs of, was he going to come out tight? Was he going to come out ultra aggressive? Was the pendulum going to swing kind of wildly one way or the other? And quite honestly, he played a normal game, and that's exactly what they need. They just need him to be himself. He doesn't have to do anything extra. He doesn't have to try to bully people around. He doesn't, he just has to be himself. That's all they need. That's what they got today. I think, it's a better matchup for him against Memphis than the Clippers. The Grizzlies have, for most of this game, tried to put Steven Adams on him, and Towns was able to take advantage of it. We'll see what Taylor Jenkins decides to do going forward in this series. Steven Adams was really a non-factor in this game today. So that's just what they need. They just need Towns to be himself. Don't try too hard. Don't push. Don't tense up if things don't go your way early in a game. Don't cry to the officials.
Right.
Don't lose your composure. Just be yourself, be under control. And he admitted that there were times during the game that he had to kind of catch himself, to not, react over the top or anything like that. So it's still something to watch going forward. One game does not erase, all those potential issues, but it was certainly a step in the right direction.
Take a playcation to Mystic Lake for 24/7 gaming, fun restaurants and bars, and luxurious hotel rooms. And join Club M to bask in the rewards. Follow the lights to Mystic Lake, where every day is play day.
How much do you think, Steven Adams did not attempt a field goal or a free throw in 24 minutes in this game, was a -13, only even got 3 rebounds. He's a better player than that. I'm sure that will change as the series goes on, but how much does Karl-Anthony Towns benefit from the opposing center who played half of the minutes not attempting a shot? And that helps keep him out of foul trouble. That makes him not have to work nearly as hard on the defensive end as he might have to in other matchups, right?
Exactly. It does when he's a non-factor like that. It should help them in their defense against John Morant. Morant had a brilliant day today. But Memphis really wasn't able to take advantage of the way John Morant was playing. Part of that was Memphis had a tough day shooting threes, which Memphis is not a great 3-point shooting team. And that plays into the Wolves' hands a little bit. Another reason why this is a decent matchup for the Wolves, because Memphis cannot take advantage of the Wolves' scramble defense, which tends to leave people open for threes. I think that's going to be one of the big kind of strategy storylines going into game 2 is just what does Memphis do with Steven Adams? Are there going to be more games like this? One of the things that Steven Adams did, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Clark did kind of throughout the regular season was they crushed the Wolves on the offensive boards.
Yes.
That didn't happen today either. The Wolves did a commendable job, especially given what Memphis had done to them at times during the regular season, of keeping those guys off the offensive glass. And, I think Steven Adams having 0 shot attempts is a direct result of the job that the Wolves did on him on the boards, because he probably gets a couple shot attempts if he's grabbing offensive rebounds and just putting them back up.
You're right. He only had 1 offensive rebound in those 24 minutes, just 3 total rebounds. Anthony Edwards, like we talked about already, too, 36 points, 6 assists, had a steal, had 2 block shots, couple of rebounds, perfect 8 of 8 from the line, and efficient 12 of 23 from the field, really picking up where he left off in that Clippers game where he had 30 points and he was their leading scorer in that game. And you wrote about in the lead of your story, read that, please, Star Tribune, startribune.com. You wrote the lead of your game story, just kind of a moment he and Karl-Anthony Towns had before the game where Catch is saying, be yourself, do what you do. And to say that to a 20-year-old already, do what you do. When the bright lights come on, that's when Ant shines, is why I think that's something about what he tweeted the other day. That was again the case in this game. What more can you say about a 20-year-old making his playoff debut, scoring 36 points?
I think this is kind of what we all thought about Anthony Edwards. Just watching him over these last 2 seasons, getting to know him, seeing his personality on and off the court, nothing really phases him. And I think you're seeing that now. The big moment, he loves it. A road atmosphere. He's joking about how little kids are telling him that he stinks and he needs to go sit down, and how much he's enjoying the trash talk with them. That he loves the Memphis crowd for that reason. There are other people that might just get intimidated by that might shy away from it. He embraces all of it. He relishes the moment. He's not afraid to take any shot on the floor. As he said today, sometimes to the chagrin of Chris Finch.
Right.
But when you put up 36, nobody's complaining. I just think, he's not fazed by anything. He had a stretch towards the end of the regular season where he wasn't playing well. He had some slow starts. He kind of self-diagnosed the problems, and by the end of the season, he was back to himself again. And I think it just shows kind of maturity and the intelligence that he has at 20 years old. He really is a unique player, and he's been showing that this week.
Now, game flow wise, I mean, the Wolves took an early lead, and aside from Memphis getting a couple of brief 2-point leads, I think the last of them was in the second quarter. It felt like the Wolves were kind of in control for large stretches of that game. Did that piece of it surprise you? It wasn't a coast to coast win because, like I said, Memphis did lead briefly a couple times, but the way that the game flow went, it wasn't like it was this like late surge like the Clippers game. This was kind of a start to finish. This was the better team in this night. Did that surprise you?
Yeah, it did. It did. I was sitting there, and I was just kind of waiting. Like, Memphis is at home. It's game one. They're a good team, over 50 wins. Like, I just kept waiting for like a big surge from them where they're gonna take control of this game, go up by like 8 or 10, and they're gonna end up having to play from behind the rest of the way. That's what I was waiting for during this game, and it never happened. I think Memphis's biggest lead in this game was 2. Right. In part because every time Memphis put together a run or threatened the lead, it was usually Edwards that came up with some sort of big basket, some three or a pull-up jumper. He took it to the rim. Towns would do something productive. Towards the end of the game, Jaden McDaniels played really well. They had an answer for everything in a road environment in the playoffs. It was impressive from that aspect that they didn't let any little Memphis run spiral out of control, and just stayed doing what they were doing, which was working for most of the game.
I'm glad you mentioned some of the, not role players is probably the wrong word, because these guys are, rotation players who are relied upon, but Jaden McDaniels, 15 points in his playoff debut, 15 points, 7 rebounds, 5 of 6 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3-point range, a plus 19 in his 25 minutes. Malik Beasley had a really strong game off the bench, played 30 minutes, probably helped buffer a little bit of D'Angelo Russell's tough shooting night because they could play Beverly and Beasley together, and that was a pretty good combination. Patrick Beverly had a very good game, made that big 3-pointer late that kind of pushed that lead to the point where it got comfortable. He had 10 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. I mean, as much as it was the Towns and Edwards show, we can't overlook the fact that this has been a very deep team at times this year. And maybe not, I still think they lean on their starters plenty. They lean on their big three plenty, but it's not limited to them. And those kind of secondary players did show up tonight.
Yeah, Beasley had a huge game, like you said. He helped to cancel out some of D'Angelo Russell's struggles. Russell was 2 for 11 tonight. McDaniels had a huge second half, just on both ends of the court. He had that one sequence where he blocked Ja Morant when the game was still, I think the Wolves were up 6 at the time with about 2 minutes left, so still very much, in doubt and contention. He blocks Morant's shot. Wolves come down to the other end, ball swings around to him, and he nails a corner 3. Basically ends the game with that offense defense kind of sequence. He learned a little bit just from one half to the other. He said about defending more with his chest, defending less with his arms. He got 3 quick fouls in the first half, but he came out and I think alongside Ian Cat was the third most important player for the Wolves in that second half.
As we think ahead now, kind of finishing up here, thinking ahead to Tuesday's game, a couple days off, Memphis has to be feeling, like, wow, that, kind of got hit in a way, but they also probably can lean on the fact that, hey, they did this to Utah last season and then Utah took 4 straight from them. They got to know that this is, one game does not define a series. That said, this is a body of work here where they know this is a tough opponent. Adjustment wise, as we think of kind of game 2, cat and mouse, how this, how these teams might adjust to each other. What do you think we have to look forward to there?
I think the big thing is, how is Memphis going to choose to guard Towns? Will it be trying to guard him straight up again? Will they try to bring more doubles the way the Clippers did? Will Steven Adams be a part of those rotations? Can Jaren Jackson Jr. stay out of foul trouble? And can Memphis hit more from the outside and punish the Wolves' defense? We'll see what kind of chess moves that Chris Finch wants to make against John Morant, who only took 1 3 today. Are they going to try to pack the lane a little more, try to make him shoot from the outside? But John Morant's so good and so quick that I'm not sure how much of it matters. And if the Wolves play like that, like I said, can Memphis punish them if they try to pack the lane and keep Memphis out of the paint, where they do most of their damage offensively? So those are the things that I'm looking for in game 2. Look, this is going to be a close series. I think the difference for these two teams is not very big. And I think, just a couple plays here and there in any given game can swing it. So, just because the Wolves won this one, like you said, we've seen plenty of series where the road team wins game 1, and then after that, the home team gets it together, wins 4 straight or wins 4 of the next 5, and it's that game 1 becomes a distant memory. So that's what the Wolves have to guard against here. Don't get too high, make your adjustments, and we'll see what happens on Tuesday.
I got to admit, and let's end with this. My perception of this series did change a little bit just with this outcome. I knew going in that this felt like a relatively favorable matchup for a 2-7. It was closer than most 2-7 series were. And I'm now at the point where I go from this could be a series to this could actually be a series they win. I didn't really have that thought before game 1, and that has changed, not just because of the outcome, but by the way the outcome was achieved. Is that the same for you, or do you still want to see more in game 2 and beyond before you change your perception of this series?
I want to see the Wolves win a second game. That's my thing. I came into that. I'm like, I know they're probably going to win at least one game somewhere in here, and they might even win one of the first 2. But if they can somehow go up 2-0 or 2-1 after game 3 potentially, then I'll actually believe. I know it's like, that's a big prediction there, Hine. They win 2 games in a series and you think they can win the series.
I hear you. I hear you.
But I know I just kind of need to see it, because we have seen before so many teams just win one game and they get railroaded out of the series anyway.
Yeah, no, and we've seen this team be inconsistent all year too. So one game does not predict how game 2 will go, but they've got to be feeling good about this. So I mean, I did not sit in on the post game. What was mood wise? What did we glean from that?
They're pretty happy with themselves. As they should be. Listen, you got a playoff win in game 1 on the road. You should be happy. And had a couple funny quotes as usual. Like I said, talking about kids trash talking him on the sidelines. You had Towns was in a seemingly good mood. And again, why shouldn't he be? He played a great game. Chris Finch, very even keeled, even demeanored as he usually is, win or lose. So it was nothing out of the ordinary. And you had two days off between 1 and 2 here. The Wolves are staying in Memphis. They are not going to go back to Minneapolis even with the 2 days off. So they're just going to kind of hang out here in Memphis, and we're all going to eat some barbecue, and we'll see how much weight we put on by the time we get back.
Sounds good, Chris Hine. Well, I'm sure you and I will be talking plenty as this series goes on, and Patrick Royce and I will be talking about this plenty on Monday's show as well. Game 2, Tuesday, 7:30 start, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, 7:30.
A lot better than the game 4 start, which I believe is 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
Minnesota time on a Saturday. Killing our copy desk, killing our deadlines.
Don't we love that? Yes.
That is not great, but we've been lucky. A lot of the other start times are pretty good, including 2:30 on a Saturday. So I guess we can't complain too much. Yep. Chris Hine, great stuff. Go enjoy the rest of your night and the rest of the time in Memphis. We'll catch up with you again soon. Okay.
Thanks, Mike.